Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Mark Bunting, the host of RCTV. Our guest today is Kenneth MacLeod, President, CEO, and a Director at Sonoro Gold. Great to see you, Kenneth. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
All right, we're looking forward to this. We'll get back to Kenneth in just a moment. First, more on the company. It used to be known as Sonoro Metals. Now Sonoro Gold trades under the ticker symbol SGO on the TSX Venture Exchange. It also trades over the counter in the United States under the ticker SMOFF, and it trades in Frankfurt, Germany. Sonoro Gold is a junior gold exploration development and a soon-to-be gold producer with properties in the mining-friendly jurisdiction of Sonora, Mexico. Now, this company plans to develop a 12,000 tons per day heap leach mining operation at its flagship property, the Cerro Caliche gold project, and it wants to utilize the generated cash flow to fund further exploration and development. Now, a reminder to those on the line that there is a chat function, which you'll see on the screen there. As we go through the webinar, you can type in your questions, and we'll get to those in a Q&A session after the formal presentation from Kenneth. Now, speaking of that, let's hand it over to Kenneth. I'll get out of the way, and he'll go roughly 20 minutes with his presentation. Kenneth, take it away.
Thank you again, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for taking the time to join us. I'll go into the program right away here. It's the picture you're looking at currently is the center part of the Cerro Caliche property located in northern Sonora, Mexico. It's about a 3-hour drive from the property to Tucson, Arizona, or a 3-hour drive to the capital of Sonora State, Hermosillo. And what you're looking at is the central part of the concession where all these roads are situated and crisscrossing the topography. And we've got a grand total of almost 500 drill holes within this frame here. And the areas that you're seeing on the left-hand side are the areas that we've been drilling between 2018 and 2020. And as we moved further to the west, west is to the right side of the screen, where we were drilling areas called Buena Suerte in 2020-21. And the most recent drilling we've done is in the western part of the concession in the Colorado zone. And we've ended up with very, very high grades in that particular part of the concession. We'll talk about that. I want to emphasize here right now, when we started drilling at Cerro Caliche in November 2018, we made a conscious decision to take as few risks as possible with the drilling. And we focused on developing a shallow, open pitable oxide deposit. And to date, the average length of a drill hole is 110 meters with a 45-degree dip, which makes the true depth approximately 60 to 70 meters. So, and we've stuck to that model with all the 500 drill holes that have been drilled to date as well. And it's been very successful. So now we have developed a large, fairly large, the open pitable, heap leachable mine model that we intend to take into production over the coming year and a half. And going forward, and going to the next one here, forward-looking statements. We will be talking about forward-looking statements that talk about increasing the grade, increasing the resource, and going into production. And I urge you to take a look at that when you have time. Management team is one of the finest teams in Mexico. The top 4 people on the list have collectively 180 plus years of experience in the junior mining sector. Starting off with John Darch, he's been involved in 40 years in funding and managing mining projects throughout the various parts of the world. Jorge Diaz, our VP of Operations and the Vice Chairman, he's been building mines in Mexico. And in fact, he's been involved in the design, construction, and operation of 12 gold mines in Mexico over his 50-year tenure as a mining engineer. He was educated at the Guanajuato School of Mines and then got his Master of Science in mining in Colorado School of Mines. My own background, I've got 40 years experience in funding and managing public companies around the world, and all the way from Asia through Africa, South America, and of course, North America. Mel Herdrick, our head of exploration, he's a fairly legendary geologist in Mexico. He was former head of exploration Mexico for Phelps Dodge, and then he became one of the founders of Pediment Gold back in 2005. And that was very successful. They developed two large deposits, which caught the eye of Argonaut Gold, and that company was taken over by Argonaut in 2011. Oscar Gonzalez, our chief geologist, he's been in the northern Mexico exploration programs for the past 20 years. In fact, he worked extensively in our district in what is now the Mercedes mine, which is our neighboring property. We're listed on the TSX Venture and also on the OTC QB and on the Frankfurt Exchange. A lot of the trading originates in Germany and Switzerland, and we're very, very blessed to have a great marketing team in Germany. Excuse me. Location-wise, I mentioned we're a 3-hour drive. Tucson, Arizona would be where my cursor is currently, and it's a 3-hour drive down to the property. We're surrounded by producing mines. Notably, just to our southeast would be Bear Creek's Mercedes mine. Same structure, similar geology. There are differences. We've been focusing on the shallow aspects of our project. We have decided not to go deep yet until there's cash flow within the company. But the Mercedes mine is operating at 350 meters below surface, whereas we're looking at the shallow stuff down to 60, 70, 80 meters. Neighboring property is the Cerro Prieto mine just to our west. That's been operating for 9 or 10 years. And to the north is Agnico Eagle's Santa Gertrudis project. And all of these properties are in what is known as the Kukurt Bay sub-district, which is sandwiched in between the Sonora Mojave Megashire, which is coming in from northwestern Mexico, and the Sierra Madre Gold Belt to the east. Now, I want to emphasize here right now, when we made that decision to drill in 2018 and drill shallow, the goal was to develop enough ounces to get into production and start producing with a reasonable amount, 8 to 10 year life of mine, and then we start producing, and then part of that revenue would go towards additional drilling. And it's been a very successful model for us in this regard, in that we have 2 editions of a previous PEE that is being superseded now by another PEE that will be produced over the coming months. And the PEA demonstrated in the earlier versions 7 to 10 year life of mine. And so we've been focusing now on getting to the point where that will be realized through getting the environmental permit to build the mine, which is we're very, very close to getting that accomplished. And secondly, to raise the project financing. And through project financing, of course, we'll be producing a new PEA, which shows the new costs for building the mine. And the goal has always been to keep the capital costs down to a minimum in the early stages, so as to avoid dilution to the shareholders. But one thing I want to emphasize is of the mineralization that we have identified to date, and SRK produced a report just a month ago, which showed approximately 420,000 ounces within the pit shells at an average grade of 0.45 gold. And there's a potential surrounding these pit shells, and these are drilled and assayed drill holes, potential for up to another 275,000 ounces. So if you want to look at it from the mineralization viewpoint, within this blue zone that I'm showing here, the potential for that particular zone is approximately 700,000 ounces. And we've estimated that with all the work that we've done on surface mapping and sampling, we identified that as being representing less than 30% of the known mineralized zones within the property. Hence the recent news release that went out about us getting into the northwestern part of the concession to investigate occurrences of higher grades, and obviously the potential for a deeper resource in these areas as well. And we're encountering more rhyolite in this particular zone, and we're quite encouraged by the returns that we've got on surface sampling, and also on earlier drilling in this particular zone here. So expectation is that by the time we've completed this particular drilling program in the northwestern part of the concession, we'll have examined and drilled and assayed approximately 50% of the known mineralized zones. But keep in mind, there's a lot of areas in the property that are not known to be mineralized simply because of overburden. And that doesn't mean to say that it's not mineralized. It's a simple case of that we have to dig a little bit, scrape off the surface in order to get to the potential in these particular other outlying zones. The next stage I'll go to now is, this is a map showing all of the drilling that we've done to date. And SRK's report essentially focuses on this central part of the concession here, where we've been able to effectively show probably 6 or 7 different pit shells in earlier versions of the PEA, but which eventually, as more drilling occurs and as you start to mine, these disparate pit shells could and should merge into larger pit shells as well. Obviously, once again, this is only the start of developing what we consider to be a much, much larger deposit. And the way to do it properly and with minimum dilution to the shareholders is to get into production ASAP and then utilize some of the cash flow towards continuing with the drilling program. And we believe that the current resource as it stands can be increased by multiples over the coming 2 to 3 years of drilling. The area off to the west here is one I want to emphasize too. This area was essentially analyzed extensively over the past year due to recent drilling in the area, and the grades are significantly higher. You look at the average for the entire property of 0.45 grams of gold, and over in this area here, it's a significantly higher area of grades that we feel would be the ideal candidate for the initial few years of production on the property. And I'll show you some of the cross sections, AA and BB, that demonstrate that. And keep in mind, look at the SER 286 in the bottom right of the screen, 27.5 meters of 5.5 grams, including one intercept at 46 grams. That is quite exceptional, really. And if you look at the distance from the surface, it's only about 55 meters. And these are the kind of grades that our friends over at the Mercedes mine would be encountering at 300 and 350 meters below surface. So, of course, they're an underground mine. We're focusing right now on the open pit potential for this property here. Is there a potential to go deeper in the future? Of course there is. We will be drilling deeper, but we're going to do it when we have the more cash flow underway, and we're better able to accept these risks of going deeper. But as it stands right now, this is not a solitary area of high grade. If you keep going to the west, you got 299, which is 10.5 meters of 9 grams. You've got keep going, and you've got 12 meters of 11 grams, and you've got 9 meters of almost 10 grams, all the way up to the top. And these are high-grade ore shoots that we intend to now drill out a bit further in order to quantify them further. And these ore shoots continue over the 300-meter section that we're showing here on Colorado, and they continue into the next zone to the north, the Guadalupe vein zone. And I could show you probably for 10 or 15 more of these higher grade intercepts, 22 meters of 1.5 grams, and what do we have? 3 meters of just under 20 grams. There are more and more of those, and this is a continuation. I'll go back to the map here, which shows you that from the south end of Colorado to the north end of Guadalupe vein zone is over a kilometer of almost continuous high-grade ore shoots. So that makes it a perfect candidate, a perfect target for us to commence the mining in the first year or two. And the goal right now is as part of the current plan, when we finalize our current financing, the plan is to use some of the funds in order to keep expanding these high-grade ore shoots. The SRK model has capped all of these high grades at 3 grams. So you're not getting the benefit of 20 grams and 30 grams and 50 grams. Everything is capped at 3 grams. So the more you drill there, obviously, the more the cap will be raised. And of course, we'll be able to demonstrate a greater resource at Colorado and at Guadalupe. I'll show you some of the other slides here. That goes some of the other sections across the property, east to west. Doesn't show the high grade zone off to the west, but I want to show you how easy it is to mine here. You start effectively at surface and you start mining. Another section here, very easy to mine, but strip ratio is low. The strip ratio is typically in the order of 1 to 1.5. So there's not a lot of waste involved here. This summarizes the SRK report. Effectively, I mentioned to you, when you tally up within the pit shells, the mineralization is in the order of about 420,000 ounces. And outside of the pit shells, but surrounding it, and with very little sweat effort, we should be able to increase for anything from 120 to 275,000 ounces. And we believe that's conservative because these have already been drilled, assayed. We know what the results are. So now we just need to do a little bit more infill drilling to bring those potential ounces of mineralization into the pit shells as well. Metallurgy, I think I'll make a brief mention of it. We've conducted 2 metallurgical tests over the past 4 years. Then the most recent one being with McClellan Laboratories in Reno. We've conducted these tests, I believe, to a minimum of pre-feasibility study level and quite possibly to feasibility study level. And the idea was that we would not have to go back and do any further metallurgical testing before going into production. And the results have been very, very profound for us in that 74% recovery on the gold, 27% recovery on the silver. But keep in mind, the silver component, it represents less than a 5% impact on future revenues for the project. So this is essentially a gold project with a very, very minute silver component. Expansion targets at the Colorado zone I mentioned to you. Yeah, we'll be taking these areas of 5.5 grams, 27 meters, 11 grams, 12 meters, and so on. And we will be expanding upon those. And I think you will agree that if we keep on expanding these high grade ore shoots, that the average grade for that area will of course increase dramatically, and it will have an impact overall on the grades right across the project. So the new area that we just announced that we're going to be drilling, not in this first phase of drilling, but in the next phase, and potentially once we are in production. Let's say we're in production by the end of 2024. At the same time, we will be drilling these new zones here that we've identified as being very, very prospective from surface mapping and sampling. And some of the surface grades that we're showing on here from the sampling, as high as 25 and to 24 grams. And so this area is very prospective. We've got enough targets for drilling in these various zones. So we've been able to identify through our success with the Veta de Oro zone, which is slightly to the west of these. We've been able to predict and identify similar kind of trends at the Veta de Oro zone, and which we now are now projecting onto these zones at Rincon and Bayatoso. And going forward, We've made some projections as to how deep they may go. It's a possibility that there's the area we're looking at here, the northwestern part of the concession. And if you look at it in cross section here, we truly believe that because of the geology in this area, that the potential for going deeper in this area here is significantly higher, because we believe that we are at the higher end of the boiling zone here, and the potential depth for drilling is now extended, and we will be doing some deeper drilling here, because the identification of the geology suggests that we should be going deeper. And then the targeting for each of these particular zones, Rincon, for example, we've got a picket fence of drill holes all the way through Rincon here. We believe that's going to add significant amount of mineralization to the resource over the coming couple of years, as much as 10 million tons. That if the grades are higher than the other average across the board for the project as well. So it could be a very strong contributor to the resource. And that is not included within the current resource estimation. Going into the Bayetosa zones, once again, that's based upon our own knowledge of the project and how these particular vein zones are responding to the drill bit. And so we are looking at each one of these zones that we've identified as having significant potential, with the average grade we're projecting being just a little bit higher than what the average has been for the project to date. Now, this is the important slide for all of us right now, because we have been working on and tying this down to realistic dates and time schedules. The private placement that we announced recently, about a month ago, is partially completed. We did a first tranche financing closure in just a couple of weeks ago, for $1.7 million of the $3 million financing. And we hope to continue with that level of success as we go forward over the coming few weeks as well. The preliminary economic assessment, it's been a long time coming. We've had difficulties with our consultants in scheduling this, but it is underway now. And we believe that in the month of August, we should be able to announce the PEA, not necessarily the final report to be published, but the results of the new mine plan and the economic assessment of that new mine plan. And followed up very quickly after that with the full report. Permitting has been an issue that is near and dear to the hearts of many of our listeners here today. Obviously, there has been a hiatus in Mexico of new permits being granted. But however, with the passing of the new mining law about 6 weeks ago in Mexico, we've been getting reassurances from the Mexican government that there'll be no impediments now to getting the approval for the environmental approval for building our open pit mine. It is proceeding. We know that we've gone through the entire process without any further impediments to getting the final approval. So it's entirely political at this point in time, and the timing is, I believe, right for us, with the new mining law having been passed. And we've looked at the mining laws and how it affects us going forward, and the answer is it does not affect us. The major difference would be that the tenure for mining projects has been reduced from 50 years to 30 years, and as long as you're working on the concession, you can apply for adding a further 25 years to that. So at the end of the day, it doesn't make any difference to us. So we're looking forward to, and we are working closely with SEMARNAT, the environmental agency, to get this approved ASAP. Drilling the high-grade targets, this is part of the financing that I mentioned to you earlier. Approximately $750,000 is being earmarked for drilling these high-grade targets. And I believe that we will get a good return on that investment. Project financing. We have been dealing with several project lenders now over the past couple of years. And once the environmental approval is granted to build the mine, which is, they call it in Mexico, the MIA, we should be able to close the project financing in relatively quick time and start the site preparation. Site preparation is expected to continue pretty well for 6 months or so. And construction, I would like to see us start the construction. Excuse me, I'll have some water here. Construction in the mine by the end of the year, by the end of this year, early into 2024. And if all things are going as we anticipate, our goal is to be pouring the first doré bar by September of 2024. And of course, the important one is that is based upon the current mine plan, but the goal is to keep on drilling with the revenue from the project finance, from the project itself, and continue with the drilling program so that we can fully realize the true value of this project here. It is not possibly up to 700,000 ounces. It is significantly higher than that, and it's only going to be revealed by continuing the drilling program. Summation of the share structure here, we've been trading in the 8 to 9 cent range now for what seems like a 6 or 7 month period. And the goal is, to as we go forward here, to hopefully get a better share price once we have the two key elements in place: the environmental impact approval, and secondly, getting the new PEA issued over the coming month and a half. Then, structure-wise, the company has issued and standing right now 160 million shares, of which the insiders own approximately 32% in total. So we have a very, very significant stake in the future success of this company. And in fact, the most recent financing we did, management took down the lion's share of the $1.7 million. So, and we continue to believe in the project, believe in the company, and believe we're going to be a very, very successful outcome. Some of the warrants that are showing here at 30 cents, 56 million, they expire in August. I believe that the August ones will expire without being exercised. And the balance of 17 million will expire in December. Hopefully we'll have a better share price by then. And shares fully diluted to 262 million at this point in time. And going into the final slide here, this is a shot showing, looking towards the north, towards the Cerro Caliche peak, of which the property is named after. And you're looking at an area that is also highly prospective. We've built a road right up to the summit, and we've been getting some good results from the sampling program at the summit. In fact, there's two old mine workings, but itinerant mining workings at the summit that we come across. And the expectation is in due course once we're back into the drilling program, that we will be drilling at the summit of Cerro Caliche Peak. So it's going to be a very exciting time for us at that point, because this type of potential is it's part of the rhyolite zone that is off to the west, and where we're getting a higher incidence of silver and higher grades of gold. And this may be repeated at Cerro Caliche Peak as well. That's a future target for us. So at the moment, I'll hand it over to Mark for any questions. Mark, you're muted.
Shoot, sorry, you hear me now?
Yeah, there, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. All right, thanks, Kenneth. That was excellent, very thorough, and we enjoyed that. And clearly, you have a lot of catalysts on the horizon. A reminder to some of the viewers out there that if they want to ask a question, we have a chat box. You can put your questions there. Have you had enough time to take a break and get a swig there? And we'll keep going with the questions now, Kenneth.
I'd like to keep going. I'd like to make full use of everybody's time. I'll have some water right now, though.
Absolutely. That's a lot of talking. So let's, a question here from Darren Welsh, and we'll stick with the permitting theme. He says, permitting has taken over a year now. What is your guidance on getting permits? And you were touching on it there. And has there been an open dialogue during this process?
The dialogue has been with the technical people at SEMARNAT, the environmental agency. And we've gone back and forth with them on the typical kind of questions that you would get for whether you're permitting in Canada or in Chile or anywhere in the world. And we've responded. And by Mexican law, you have a certain amount of time to respond. We've responded within those parameters. They've come back to us within their timeframes as well. So I would say at this point in time that from a technical perspective, there are no issues that have been left unresolved. But as you know, the political issue in Mexico with respect to permitting has been stalled until the Mexican government came up with this new mining law. I think it was May the 7th that they actually published the new mining law. And there has been a lot of pushback from various parties as to the new mining law. But there's been no pushback from us because it does not impact us negatively. So either way, the new mining law or the old mining law, we are perfectly satisfied that we will go in, build this mine and be successful with the operation of the mine. And so as it stands now, I don't see any further impediments for the Mexican government and SEMARNAT to go ahead with the permitting for this project. But it still is in the final phase of the political review process, and we don't have any, of course, direction as to how long that'll take. It could be a few days, it could be a few weeks, but I don't see it running into many more months from this point onward. But I would say right now that to all intents and purposes, we fully expect that we will get an approval over the current, maybe in the third quarter of 2023.
So a follow-up question here from me on that. Mexico, of course, known as a mining-friendly jurisdiction. Sonora, where you are, Sonoro State, mining-friendly. Do these circumstances, these delays, do they change your view at all about Mexico in that regard, or it's business as usual?
Well, for us, it is business as usual because our operations are focused on Sonora State. We have another project called San Marcial as well. We will be developing once the Cerro Caliche project is in production. But the Sonora State is unique in Mexico. It is very mining friendly. The government of Sonora is extremely mining friendly and wants to continue being the number one producer of gold in Mexico. And I think about 38% of the gold produced in Mexico is mined in Sonora State. The government wants to protect that production of gold. And so we believe that the Sonora State is by far the finest jurisdiction in Mexico. And I used to say that it's on a par with Nevada, and that's saying something. And I think as time goes by now, once we get over this issue of implementing the new mining law, I think Sonora State will regain its position as one of the finest jurisdictions in the world for building a mine.
Kenneth, you talked about the plan to drill deeper, to look for higher grade, and essentially getting to production as soon as possible. That's the plan sometime next year. And then you want to keep drilling after that and then continue to increase the size of the resource. And you put out that news release recently hinting at the possibility of expansion. So can you sort of flesh that out a little bit? You said currently you're looking at a resource of about 700,000, but that could expand by multiples. What sort of numbers are we talking about, perfect world scenario?
Well, we produced what we call a project development report in February of 2022. And we did a little bit of deep analysis of the various zones in the property. And based upon our experience with the prior zones that we had postulated as to the potential tonnage and the potential grades, and were eventually successful once the drilling was completed. We've been able to estimate what the overall potential for the project is. And we have to be very circumspect here in that we can't give an exact figure. I can't give you 2 million ounces at a grade of 0.5. It just, that doesn't work. But I can give you a range of tonnages. And we estimated that a minimum, we currently have about 30 million tons of material. And within that 30 million tons of material, we've got 420,000 ounces within the pit shell, and surrounding that potential 275,000 that's already drilled and assayed. So taking that into account, 30 million tons, and you've got the potential mineralization of up to 700,000 ounces. And then we postulated that a further 30 million to 90 million tons are possible, depending on what depth you're estimating to drill to. And for example, to an estimated average depth of 50 to 60 meters, that you're looking at possibly in the order of about 30 to 45 million tons. If you go a little deeper to 75 meters, then of course the estimate increases. And we're getting into areas now where the potential for depth is significantly higher, because we now know that we're at the upper end of the boiling zone, and that the mineralization curve, or the mineralization trajectory, it seems to be higher. We're getting good grades in the Rincon zone at a depth, and I'm talking about 67 to 80 meters, and we believe that that'll continue to depth as well. So the potential, I'd love to be able to wave my arms and say X number of ounces, but I think if we go by tonnage right now, we know the mineralization is there. The key element is it going to be economic?
Right, and you're prudent to do that, of course. Now, in terms of project financing, is there a number in mind?
Project financing, the number will be defined shortly. We had two earlier editions of 15,000 tons a day from day one, and then we revised it to 12,000 tons per day. And I think at that point we were down to about project finance in the order of about $25 million, in that order. This is not a large construction project. There's no mill required here. What you're doing is you're taking the existing roads, strengthening them so that you can accommodate the large trucks, and up to 87-ton trucks, for example. And then you are hauling the ore over to the crusher. The crusher is situated in a specific area that is very accessible to us. And then from the crusher, in the initial couple of years, instead of using conveyor belts over to the leach pad, we'll be trucking the ore over to the leach pad, dumping it on the leach pad, and then from there it goes into the ADR plant and producing the doré. And so there are no major structures. The biggest structure in all would be just the foundation for the leach pad. And so that's why the capital costs are much lower than one would anticipate. You know, you're building a mine, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Sorry, we're not. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars. And for this particular instance here, we've been looking at reducing the capital costs even further, because for you as a shareholder, and you're looking at, okay, if you're going to be raising $30 to $40 million, of which maybe 40% will be equity, you're trading at 10 cents, that's too much dilution. So we're intent now on cutting down the capital costs, starting off smaller and building up out of revenue, building up the size of the mine. There's a legendary fellow that has been operating for many years, both in Canada and Mexico. Chester Miller is his name. And Chester, his philosophy was start off small and don't risk all your capital up front. Start off small and keep building up the resource by drilling out of revenue. And that's exactly what we're doing. And I hope that our shareholders will recognize the value of that, because Jorge Diaz, our mining engineer, VP operation, he spent years working with Chester Miller. He knows the model. And the model works, and it works extremely well. And Chester has been extremely successful over the years with that model.
Right, it makes a lot of sense, Kenneth. Let's wrap it up with this question. So essentially, you're just a little, if all goes well, you're a little more than a year out from your first gold pour. So working backwards to the PEA and all your short-term objectives and the timeline that you've gone through, right through to construction and eventually production in about a year's time. What are the keys, do you think, in terms of execution to keep it on track and to get there?
Oh, two things. And we mentioned that earlier in the program just now. One is getting the environmental permit approved. That's the guts of the entire project here. Once that is approved, I think if you cast your mind back to one of our peers, Minera Alamos, several 2-3 years ago, they were waiting for their environmental permit to be approved. And when it finally came, their stock went from 10 cents and it went to probably around 35 cents. And eventually when they went into production, they went as high as 75 cents. It's settled back down a bit since then because of the general conditions in the market. But it gives you an idea of the impact that getting the environmental permit should have on our share price as well. It removes the doubt. And there's a lot of people that are listening to us today who are saying, "Oh, you've been promising us the environmental permit now approval for some time." And the answer is yes. But now I can say with a higher degree of certainty, the new mining law is in place and the government has come out and stated, we do not object to permitting open pit mines. In fact, they have already provided permits to expand existing open pit mines. So it's falling into place for us. It's just a matter of timing. And the other one is produce an updated PEA, which, as I alluded to, keeping the costs down. I believe that it'll be a PEA that is eminently financeable and will make economic sense to both investors and to project lenders.
Well, thanks for your time today, Kenneth, and all of the information on Sonoro Gold. We appreciate it, and we'll be following, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you, Mark. It's a real pleasure talking to you. And thank you to all of the listeners today. We welcome any questions you may have. My email is ken@sonorogold.com, and look forward to working with Red Gold as we go through the process over the coming weeks. And if there's any questions that I can answer, of course, we hand it over to the brokerage community at Red Cloud. And I really, truly thank the professionalism at Red Cloud and the support we're receiving. Thank you, Mark.
All right, very good. Great stuff. Thanks, Kenneth. We'll talk to you again. And thank you very much for watching and for participating as well. Just to let you know, we were speaking with Kenneth MacLeod, President, CEO, and a Director at Sonoro Gold, in case you didn't know that already. Also, you can head over to our website, redcloudfs.com. We've got all our webinars there, all sorts of our CTV content as well. You can join our email list too. So thanks again for watching. We'll do this again soon, and take care for now and have a great day.